Welcome to the Over the Hump podcast. Your gateway to the world of the iconic Brahman breed of cattle. At BRC Ranch, our passion for Brahman cattle runs deep. Join us as we delve into the heart of this extraordinary breed, unveiling its rich history, exploring industry trends, and sharing captivating stories that define the American Brahman. BRC Ranch stands as the pinnacle of Brahman excellence in America, boasting a decade-long legacy of champions and housing the finest Brahman bulls worldwide. It's not just about cattle, it's about a legacy that reverberates across ranches and hearts. Brought to you by BRC Ranch, where the Brahman legacy thrives and stories are woven into the very fabric of ranching. This is Over the Hump. And now your hosts, Brendan Cutrer, Rachel Cutrer, and Keaton Dodd.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Over the Hump podcast. I'm Keaton Dodd, and with me today, two very, very special guests we're awfully excited about. And so we talk about polled Brahman cattle and names synonymous with functional cattle, functional polled Brahman cattle, and polled Brahman cattle with carcass quality. And England's would have to rank there amongst the top. And so really excited to kind of hear the story of their program and how it's progressed. And so without further ado, here is Benton and Brooke, England. I'd like to welcome all of our guests back to another Over the Hump podcast. I'm your host, Keaton Dodd. With me is a man you all know, Brandon Cutrer, and we have a special treat. Two guests, actually. Many of you know him as probably one of the leaders in terms of polled Brahman cattle, one of the more stronger and more influential breeders in the state of Texas in regards to making quality and functional Brahman cattle. And so we've got Benton and Brooke, England, with us today. Thank you guys for joining us. And I guess just give us a little introduction, brief overview of kind of the history of England cattle and how we ended up where we are today.
First of all, thank y'all for having us. We're glad to be here.
We very much appreciate y'all having us, and it's exciting. We love the podcast. It's been great to all the different guests y'all have had has been fantastic, and we love the information y'all are bringing to all over the world. It's just really good. So kind of going over a brief overview of us, we started doing registered cattle probably we're going on about 15 years now. Mm-hmm. My dad kind of had the foresight to kind of go the polled route. You know, it was a very new idea at the time and really hadn't been pushed very hard overall. And being that my dad used to surgically dehorn cattle for a living, he definitely saw the value in it. He originally started working at a ranch called Clifford Ranch, which Mr. Clifford's in the history books for the Brahmins now, but he went on the road and started dehorning cattle for a living and did thousands a head and taught me the trade. And I got to say, it's one of the least favorite things I have to do when it comes time to weaning calves, you know, and just seeing the value and not having to do that, the commercial aspect of it where your cattle aren't going backwards when it comes to an aspect of weight and weight to gain. And just seeing how much more docile these cattle are without having to have that traumatic experience, especially in the chute, you know, it's just been really, really good. And I think that the polled world has really caught on and it's kind of a novelty, and we kind of got laughed at in the beginning, but I think polled cattle are very much in demand and something that I could see definitely being something that's going to continue out to the future.
No doubt. I mean, there's strength in polled cattle in the marketplace, and I think that going forward, they're going to become that much more important. But if you would, y'all can bounce back and forth between the two of y'all, but some of y'all's early cattle, I guess the foundation of what we know now is England cattle. Where did those cattle come from? What's kind of some of the pedigrees and the type of cattle that y'all started with?
So when we first started, we realized very early on, Brooke came on later and wasn't here just right in the beginning when we first started buying, but when we first got started, we realized very early that there was not going to be very many polled cattle to find. Carlos Guerra had gotten some bulls, one of them being Pistolero, and then there was another bull called Ambassador that was actually bought from Danny Acevedo on side of Cal that ended up both of those bulls ended up going on to being the base of a lot of the polled cattle in the United States. Obviously, Mr. V8 212 over 3, and then Brandon, I believe y'all's 51 bull was another one that had been doing quite a bit in the polled world, you know, early on. But our base of cows, we went to several different places and just kind of picked up heifers. But I got to say the number one most influential at that time, and I think in our total cow herd was Sam Duplantis from Southern Louisiana. Mm-hmm. You know, I know that we bought some heifers from Brandon right before you guys bought the bulk of his herd. And those heifers went on to really make a big influence on our herd because of the maternal side of them and just how well they did. They were just very functional, good cattle, that good udders, and had a lot of maternal merit in their pedigree. The 302 bull and then the 368 bull was probably the two big bulls that we had the most blood out of, but animals that just really did really well and nicked well with the genetics that we had. And so we really didn't market any of those females for a long time just because of the value of them, and they were making them polled and good and kept going on. We did get some from Ava Barker, and then, well, again, Brandon Rachel, y'all's 279/7 bull. We started using him in our ET program and got some good females there that are still in production today. So that was mainly our base that we started with.
Well, seems like a pretty good place to start, because I know how well those Duplantis cattle perform just in a real world setting between milking and fertility and just maintaining themselves and breeding on the quality that Mr. Sam built into them for generations.
Yeah, heck, we had a frozen embryo out of one of those old Duplantis cows from the original purchase that we put in this year, and I think you could argue she might have been the best heifer in her age group, and so those cattle are good and still have utility. Did y'all at one point in time too, Benton, and this is just me thinking back to some conversations we've had standing in the aisle at Houston, but did y'all get a group of cows from Mexico at some point in time?
We did. So when we first got started, I'll say this much: the biggest thing that we saw was just the lack of functionality. My great grandfather settled here in the early 1900s, and we've always had a commercial herd, and part of that was just the doability of those cows was necessary. And when we saw a new calf on the ground on our commercial cows, it'd be like, well, see you in 6 months, but not really. But you know what I mean? You just didn't have to worry about them getting up and nursing and being able to do that. And then their foot shape and quality was there and udder quality, And so we saw a real need for some cattle that were just absolutely functional. So we went to a ranch in Mexico, Eric Abramson, which Meva Pavitos has been around for. They're one of the oldest ranches in Mexico. We ended up importing 120 registered cows from there. And one of the most impressive things I've ever seen when it comes to Brahman cows, I flew down there in a little plane, and we get there to that place and we pull up on a pasture when we're going to sort those females that we ended up buying, is we bought them in two different groups. When we went to go get the second group, we pulled up there and there was a set of registered cows that was 100 plus 18-year-old cows in one group. And he told me, he said, normally at 18 years old, we ship them, but I bought a new ranch and I needed one more calf crop out of them. But the quality of udder that they had and just how well they did in that rough country that was, that country's non-irrigated. There's no supplementation really. They are tropical and they do tend to get some rain, but I mean, they don't add, there's no mineral, there's no much of anything other than you have to produce. I mean, those cows were very good in a lot of aspects when it came to just fertility and doability when it comes to cows keeping their condition and raising one every year without question. So we kept quite a few females out of that, and we still have them in our herd that we're using in production now.
I know the Abramson name has been pretty well synonymous with Brahman in Mexico for a really long time. But just for, I guess, impact purposes, how many 18-year-old cows did you say were in that herd that you looked at?
100. I'm going to say 100 to 125 head in one group.
That's as impressive a figure as I've ever heard.
It was, Brandon, I literally almost fell over because, I mean, I've heard of some older cows, but I mean, to have that many in one group and the udder quality on those cows still at that age, I think anybody would just die to have in their herd, overall.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It really was.
Is there still influence of those cattle in y'all's stuff today? Are there any of those cows still left?
Absolutely. We ended up using several bulls and several different matings on those cattle, and it was really interesting too. If you looked at the pedigrees, you may be able to go back 3 generations and find something that you might be able to relate back here, but a lot of it was just straight up their pedigrees. And what that did, as not only just the functionality side of it, it was kind of like we were making an F1 Brahman. We were breeding something that was just totally outcross to what U.S. genetic was at the time, you know. I mean, every once in a while you could find a JDH or a V8 back in their pedigrees, but I'm talking 3 to 5 generations back. And it was just very unique. And yes, we still have quite a few of those cows that are females that we kept in our herd that are still in production. Funny enough, talking about bulls that really nicked well with them, was we had a 212/3 son that we usually call Polled Creed. Unfortunately died, but that bull ended up producing some extremely good females for us that we ended up keeping, and just kind of a unique pedigree, a little bit older, but just something really cool that I think is very, very, very good. I'm just going to tell you, you could probably throw semen at those females and get them bred. I mean, that's how fertile they are, and just very, very good overall.
The right kind for sure. Well, Brandon was going to, I guess, just twist us in a different direction real quick. If you wanted to kind of talk about Brooke's family a little bit,
Yeah.
you have more knowledge of it.
So my first All-American was in 1998 in Lake Charles, and my first memory, one of my early memories of being involved in the AJBA and stuff, is a little redheaded girl running around playing because they're in the dirt because her mother was volunteering and kind of helping coordinate the LJBA and the All-American at that time. And you were several years behind me, but I remember that distinctly. And so we've known each other for a very long time. Not to take any thunder away from England Cattle Company, but I know you're an integral part there. But you're not just somebody who came around just recently and fell into something. You've got a history yourself. Can you give us a little bit of history of your family back in Louisiana?
Sure. It was funny, Benton mentioned, Mr. Sam earlier on, and one of the first times I came down to visit here, we were driving through the pastures, and, he starts to tell me about these cows and stuff, and I'm like, oh, you don't have to explain that brand to me. I know exactly where that is. And he's like, oh, you know Mr. Sam? I'm like, oh yeah, I know Mr. Sam, 45 minutes up the road from us. I've been fortunate to be around Brahman cattle since before I could walk. My parents, Burton and Cindy Prather, they've been involved in the Brahman Association for many, many years. I grew up on TCB Ranch, a small, Brahman cattle operation in southern Louisiana, still in production today. My dad, I don't think he'll ever fully retire from Brahman cattle, but if he would, you'd have to find him another hobby because he'd probably be, in my mom, driving my mom nuts, idle hands, right? So
Yep.
I was very fortunate to be around Brahman cattle. I've been in love with Brahman cattle my whole life. They've, put me in every professional position I've ever been in. They've been a wonderful way for me to, go to college. And then, it's just funny how your world circles. You can all these plans that you have for you, like God's plans are always 10 times better. And I don't think like growing up, I could have ever imagined that I'd be where I am today. But I think a small part of me always knew I wanted to stay involved in Brahman cattle. And then so like when Benton and I met, it was just a really good combination there of both of our passions, to be able to come together and try to build something, now for our son who's coming up. So, yeah.
I've got to say this much, so funny enough, guys, Brooke actually owns more registered cows than I do.
But we won't hold that over.
No, hold on. I got to say this much too. She owns more registered cows and she keeps more heifers than I get to. You know what I mean? Somebody's got to pay the bills around here. But she's been at it a long time. And when she came in to work here, that's what really, I think, just took us to another level. We were producing very good functional cattle. We just needed the masses to see them. And just done an outstanding job. I mean, that's such an important part, is being able to promote and market your cattle for what they are. And she's just done an amazing job for us.
And, I think we make a very good team. Neither one of us do this all 100%, right, ourselves. And so that's like kind of the beauty of being able to work together as a family.
Yeah, and that's the fun part too, just being able to be involved with your family all the time, but still working at something that everybody has a passion in.
And as you guys know, too, if you don't have a passion for it, you might as well go home, because you've got to, every day, the good, the bad, the ugly, the mother nature, there's so many factors in agriculture that are out of your control. And so, but being able to be by the people who love and care for you the most and, who want the best for you, I just really feel like that just being in that environment is so helpful. And truthfully, though, I think our cows really do pair very well together. it was funny because after we got married, my dad was like, hey, we'll have one more calf crop after the wedding, and then we're going to have to, these cattle are going to have to go to South Texas here. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I will say I'm very blessed and fortunate with a really amazing family support system. And I was, at one point in my life, I was a working girl living in Houston in the city, and I couldn't take my cows with me there. And so my parents were gracious enough to, still house them there at their place and, to work together on breeding things. But I mean, they did bulk of that work for me, when I wasn't able to physically be there. So I think without them and without their support, I don't, that we wouldn't have made it this far. But, our cows came here and we started breeding them with England Cattle Company genetics. And I'll just say a funny story. Actually, Benton and I bred cows together before we were even we might have been 4 months dating. And
I needed some video work done,
yeah.
guys. And I ended up trading her semen for video work.
Yeah. So that's something that my friends would laugh about. They're like, I can't believe y'all but you guys would understand that, right? But my dad, I think after that, when we shipped the semen to my parents' house to breed the cows, I think my dad made a comment to my mom, well, I guess this must be getting pretty serious if they're breeding cows together, because if this doesn't work out, how are we going to get breeding certificates? And I was like, oh no, it's just funny how.
Kind of like one of those deals, you never let your boyfriend into the family pictures in case you got to cut him out.
Right? That's right. Right. And I think, I heard maybe on one of your podcasts that, we're giving Rachel a gift, and it was maybe some embryos or semen or something y'all worked out. So it's just funny, how all this stuff comes together. But actually, we had a steer in our Brahman beef program that we're doing earlier this year that graded prime, and it was out of an England Cattle Company bull, the 104/8 bull, but out of a TCB cow. And so we're very proud of that, to see that combining good genetics and good carcass value from different, sides of both the family operations are able to come together and make something really good. It's just, I don't know, it fills your cup. I guess that's the best way to say that.
Well, while you're there, not to cut anybody off, and it's a little further down in our list and schedule, but while you're talking about the beef program, why don't you just go ahead and give us a run through y'all's beef program? How many steers are y'all going through? How do you market your product? Things like that.
It's a funny thing because, Brahman bull is going to be the most influential thing on your herd. And so when it comes to that kind of quality, you dang sure want to make sure you're getting solid quality. And not every Brahman bull that's born, we believe, is meant to be a bull. I think if we took that aspect in a lot of ways, I think this breed would be a lot further along. Just because the criteria for that, it's a tough bill to really fill all the boxes that you need to make, in my opinion, a single select herd sire. And so we were looking for a place to go with Brahman steers, because we all know in the marketplace it's really tough to send those to the sale barn because you're just going to lose your shirt. And luckily, right down the road, a good friend of ours, Mike Riska, that runs Real Beef Feed Yard, ended up saying that he could get them marketed for us. And so we started sending steers there, but it was absolutely killing me that we were sending them down. The buyers were actually from Mexico. And so they were sending them down to Mexico, and their actual saying was, as long as these dumb gringos don't want to buy these things, we'll buy them every day and twice on Sundays. And it really bothered me. I just wanted to try to see if we can make and tackle carcass, because I think it's so important in our breed that we do that. So we started butchering. We did 3 head.
And it took us how long?
It took us 5 months to sell 3 head. And we just started marketing that stuff and started putting more influence that way. And we talked to Rachel and Brandon both on several different things that we were kind of doing. And I think taking that aspect of everybody helping everybody when it comes to taking on the Brahman beef deal is the attitude we need to take, because we've got to be able to prove that Brahmans can grade and continue to work on that as a breed. But we started doing that, and Brooke, being the marketer that she is, just started selling it. And the first time we went out, we went to a farmer's market, a local farmer's market.
Y'all would have laughed at us rolling up in there too. I was convinced we had to carry everything in Yeti ice chests or all the meat would thaw out. So we were big bulky ice chests, him and I just going out there, had no clue what we were about to get ourselves into.
Pretty much looked like Freddie 4-H'er
a little bit
at his first show. But literally got there, and in 3 hours we sold, I think, $880 worth of beef. Yeah. And I looked at Brooke when we were leaving there. I said, honey, we're on to something here. And now Brooke is completely pretty much taken the reins on the beef side of it. And now we hit 3 to 6 farmers markets a weekend. We got some government contracts with local schools, which I think is awesome because we're feeding our local kids good quality product. And then we're running through about 15 to 16 head a month through our Brahman beef program. We're selling packages, and I mean, anything you can see, we're pretty much getting there. We're very close to start shipping beef as we see a need for that. And it's just been awesome. We sell everything from Brahman hump to tongue, cheek.
I like to tell everybody from nose to tail.
Yeah.
Which the very first time we had steers harvested, I didn't get any of that back, like the tongue or the cheek or the liver, the tail, any of that stuff. And I thought Benton was going to like lose his. He was like, "What do you mean you didn't get that? That's like prime cuts here." I'm like, "I don't know. I'm from Louisiana. We don't eat that stuff."
Really different demographic, huh?
Yeah, right. Like I mean, now don't get me wrong, Louisiana, Mississippi, we'll have had some questionable dishes, right, on plates, but it was just different. And so I think in the very beginning, and we were trying to do like just halves and quarters, and then we went to that farmer's market and just found that like retail was the way to go. And, the community was craving at that time, it wasn't like we started doing halves and quarters and things around like COVID time in 2020. And then, after that, when folks started coming back and then there was no meat on the shelves, like there was a huge need in our community for good beef, and they wanted to know where their food was coming from. And we've just seen an increase in that. Every year that we do this, the demand goes higher and higher, and folks want to know, and they're not just taking everything at face value anymore. And the news and the things you see in the media, it's very concerning for people. So I think they really appreciate being able to go and meet the farmer, talk to the farmer, know exactly what they're putting on their table for their children and for their family. So it's been a huge blessing for us. For our overall operation, it just allows us to be a little bit more diverse and have a market for our steers, our Brahman steers that we're getting, pretty good discount, at the market. And that's one of the things probably in agriculture that's the biggest challenge, is that we often will stick our hand out and say, what will you give us for it, instead of what do we demand for our product, right? And so I think that just this whole experience, being able to give back to the community, being able to put a good product out there, getting all this data back, seeing that our Brahman steers are grading, and then also another step further, seeing what sire lines are really producing those bigger ribeye areas, producing those higher marbled cuts, and then being able to drill down even further from there. I mean, it's been a really, really good blessing for us, and I'm excited to see where this next year takes us.
Yeah, I learned early on in ours. You guys were talking about going to the farmers market and hauling ice chests and all that kind of stuff. But I learned early on that I feel as a seed stock producer, no matter what breed you're in, but I think maybe even more importantly at Brahman, every Brahman breeder should be required to go through this exercise from start to finish. And when I say start to finish, I mean from conception to hitting a plate, and just every aspect along the way. And it's so rewarding just to have that there, holding the product in your hand, passing it off to a customer and meeting those people and being able to share your passion. It took a lot of dues paying. I did want to ask a question, though, when you mentioned selling to schools and supplying some schools. Is that through the Texas Farm Fresh program?
Yeah, and the local Food for Schools grant. Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a little about that program?
Sure. So probably like March, maybe this year, I had a local friend of ours who worked for the school board in a local town and not too far over reach out and just say, "Hey, would y'all ever be interested, or would y'all have the volume to maybe do some contracts? Like, we just got approved for a grant. It's called Local Food for Schools, and we want to serve Texas beef on our plates." I'm like, "Absolutely." And I was like, "Yes, we're going to do it." And then I immediately called Benton and I was freaking out. I was like, "I just agreed to do this big contract thing and we got to figure out how to make it work." And he was like, "That's all right. Let's do it." Because to them, it's not like I need 100 pounds of burgers. It was 4,000 pounds of burgers in one shot. And that 4,000 pounds of burgers fed one school.
Yeah.
So
for one day kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, which was also a blessing, because you guys know this, a good bulk of the product that you're getting back is ground beef, right? And so you're not getting, 90% ribeyes and then the rest, So we had a large volume of ground beef coming back on some of these things, and we were trying to look for a funnel to do that. And so this actually was a really great market for us. And so, that it basically just started out, hey, she reached out and said, like, we're going to be putting out a bid for this. We'd love for y'all to bid. Okay. And then once we did the first burger day there at the school, it was like word spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
And, we've been able to go, we're in 3 different schools now, and we actually have the opportunities from a couple more bids that came through in our area. But what the grant is doing is it's really trying to source local product. So the bids that we're getting are for schools and school districts within the Rio Grande Valley, but I think this is a statewide program. So for farm to table folks that are doing these things, I would encourage you to reach out to your local school boards and different things and see if they're doing the same thing. Because, and especially like my mom's an educator, she's been an educator her entire life. And when I told her like, hey, we have this opportunity to do that, she's like, that is amazing, because the food that the cafeteria system, sometimes it's just really not the best quality. And she's like, so she was excited to see that there were programs like this coming forth for an opportunity for better nutrition, for the children in the school system. So it's really been awesome. But yes, the Farm Fresh Network, I would get signed up on that, because that's really how these folks are finding out about you as well. So we're Go Texan certified. We're on the Farm Fresh Network. And then also just start making those connections within your local community, because, you never know. Like, I think what's also been really great is I didn't grow up in this area. So, I was not as familiar with, as many folks from down here, but this has just really opened so many doors and avenues just for, like, I've met so many amazingly interesting and awesome people through this experience, and just being able to give back. I mean, we do quite a bit of donations for different like auctions and different fundraisers and things throughout our community. We both feel, I think, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think we both feel that we've been given a lot of really great opportunities in our life and to grow up. And we've had a lot of really, really great mentors. The Sam Duplantis is Carlos Guerra. I think he was the one that taught you first how to take mound pictures, right?
Yeah.
Like those, we've had so many really great mentors that have really helped us and really opened the playbook for us. And, if we can give back and we can do that, then pay it forward kind of situation for us.
I think the biggest part for me was when we did that first Brahman beef day there at the school, and kids had several options on what they wanted to eat. They had pizza, they had, whatever the cafeteria was serving that day. And by far, the mass majority took the burger that they had, and just really enjoyed it. We wanted to ask them and see what they thought. And I'd asked those kids, I said, what do you think in comparison? That they were just very, very much enjoying the fact that they had a new option and something that I think that was better and better for them. Mm-hmm. So we absolutely love it. Talk about fill your cup. That's a situation that was awesome,
Yeah, listening to your beef journey is like deja vu. We went through a lot of the same experiences. And I remember when Rachel first came to me with the first school that approached us with one of these beef contracts for ground beef, and she said it was like 6,000 pounds or something like that. And I'm like, yes, that's awesome. And then it hit me, wait a second.
You're like, how many head is that? Yeah.
How many head is that? Because to make it pay, you still got to get all the rest of the cuts and everything. Mm-hmm. And so we figured it out, and it was like 12 head or something like that. And I was like, oh gosh, now we got to find them. We got to, we got to get them ready. There's a lot of logistics that go into it. But to me, the most mind-blowing thing, I was like, man, that's going to last them all year? And she said, no, that's for one day of Frito pies. So that really opened my eyes to how big this thing really could be. And the sky's the limit in this deal. And so it's so cool to hear your guys' perspective on it too, because it kind of mirrors and parallels the same things we experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Brandon, you said earlier, you see it from front to rear on everything that you go from conception to the plate, right? And it's just an amazing deal to see it in your local community. I think that's by far, we can talk all we want about selling and all that kind of stuff, but just seeing it in our local community and having the kids eating a good meal, and whether it's 1 or 50, right? It's just very gratifying. It's awesome. We very much love doing it.
Yeah, that feeling of community and giving back that you get out of serving the people around you, especially, I guess it's even intensified in the farmers markets, because you go and you visit with those people face to face. They're looking at you, and you're giving them beef, and they know where you live. They know where these cattle are. They see them every day, but they tell how they have fun family outings where, yeah, they just had burgers or something, and they said, "Hey, you want to go see where they came from?" And they just ride down the highway and say, "That's where we got our beef from."
And it's always like in growing up in 4-H and doing different, I was the kind of 4-H kid that we were signed up for everything, right? We did the public speaking, we did the demonstration talk, we did all the things, food challenge contest, all this stuff. And I think to me, what was common sense and common knowledge growing up, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, beef comes from cattle. I see them right outside my door every day. But so many of these children, like so many kids that even like folks that I grew up with, oh yeah, well, it comes from the grocery store. There's no connection there about what goes in before that, the work, the time. So it has been really nice. As we've expanded, we've opened up and we have a shop there at the ranch where people can come in during the week and buy product there. At the farmers markets, we have an amazing team. Him and I don't do this all by ourselves. I mean, there's no way we could be in 5 places at one time, right? So we have an amazing group of folks that help us out at the farmers markets every weekend, and they're our front-facing folks. But through that, they're able to come to the ranch. So many of our families, we started these subscription bundle boxes where they're for the month, they're getting their protein. They bring their kids out. They bring mom and dad. They bring grandma. I mean, they bring everybody comes. They get to pet on some of the cow, it just gets to be part of that experience. And I think that and word of mouth and just that, how you treat people is going to ripple back, and just being able to be there and folks to learn. And it is very rewarding. And it's just something that we hope to be able to continue for a long time. And
it's a part of, people these days, there's always been that deal where they ask kids where their chocolate milk comes from. They said brown cows. And for me, it gives us a really good opportunity to educate people on different cuts and different things and the quality and the reasoning to buy local. Buy a fresh product from guys that because you know where it came from, what it is, it's just fresh and it's good for you and good for your family. But you talk about these ladies that go out. We go out when we get a new lady that works for us, is we've been growing, and like we just put out a notice the other day looking for somebody else, because we're continuing that whenever we go to the markets with them for the first couple times, some of the things that we tell these customers, they don't even know, and they're just learning from us on different things, that how fresh factor and locally grown and all the everything that goes into these cattle, and how important that is to their health, and just being able to sell this great product that we believe in. It's just really awesome.
No, that is awesome. I'm impressed, proud, whatever you want to say, like what y'all have done with y'all's beef program of making a Brahman steer grade prime. And we just got a set of cattle in that we had harvested and looked back at those steaks, and they were probably the most impressive looking Brahman steaks that we have made yet. And so we can do this deal. I really do think that we can make these cattle fit on par and even be superior when we talk about carcass, if we just all kind of focus and try to make things better.
Elevate your herd with the finest Brahman heifers from BRC Ranch. Perhaps you need to replace ranch heifers, or you're sourcing elite show heifers and donor prospects. BRC Ranch understands your passion for Brahmans. We feel the same. Building a strong foundation is essential for long-term success, and we invite you to see our exceptional Brahman heifers in person. Schedule a visit to our ranch by going online to brcutrer.com and selecting a suitable time slot. That's brcutrer.com.
Kicking it in a different direction. And so, Benton, you've got your mom and dad involved, both of y'all involved, and I know y'all kind of all wear different hats and multiple hats, but I guess kind of walk us through what each one of y'all does in the program, what everybody's kind of day-to-day jobs are.
Well, I think that Brooke does the beef side of it, the actual sales side of it, and then does everything that you see social media-wise, from pictures, videos, ads, everything that you can fathom. She works on doing that, and kind of also takes a look at the books and make sure we're doing all right there. Mom really does the bulk of the book work, and then dad kind of oversees everything. And my day-to-day is just pretty much everything that goes along with ranching. You just got to be out there from breed selections to halter breaking to getting ready for events and shows and stuff like that. But everybody's very hands-on, and it just kind of depends on the day, which hat you wear for the day.
I almost feel like in this business, when you're in a family business, you're on your own business, you're kind of manager, janitor, all the things, right? All the time. I will say his mom and dad have been on the road quite a bit lately. They I guess what it was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago when Mike said, I think I'm going to start hauling all of our cattle, that we sell and everything, just to put a personal touch to, when we're dropping them off and stuff, and then just put that connection there. Cause I think folks like to see too that to a certain degree, like we'll get them most places, but everybody really has I don't think any of us are real shy on what needs to get done. We'll get it done and make it happen. But I think probably Benton and I are most on the breeding, the raising, the marketing. And then I'm still learning a lot about the books. My mother-in-law there still takes care of that office environment and setting there too. And yeah, pretty much all hands on deck. Y'all understand that too, being in your own business there.
Oh, I would like to mention, it seems like every time we see you guys or at an event or somewhere out and about, we also see Miss Cindy and Mr. Burton too. And so they seem to be very involved with your lives, especially as far away as they live. And so,
well, I'm gonna say something. Being that they were in the business long before we were, the wealth of knowledge that I get from both sides, I appreciate it very much. And on top of that, they're definitely some of the best in-laws a guy could ask for. We're very, very fortunate that they are so involved and they want to be around it, and they still have the passion. You just got to know it. Every time Mr. Burton comes down here, I see him kind of hanging out. I'll take him for a drive and just pick his brain as much as I can, just because that he's been at it a long time. He's seen a lot of changes in the way these things are bred for a long, long time, and it's really great to have that kind of wealth of knowledge at your fingertips, and important for us to ask those questions, I think, as young breeders to some people that we have great respect for.
And you don't have to worry about they're going to give you their honest opinion. So maybe if you like a bull a lot that you think maybe they don't like, maybe don't ask them their opinion, you know what I mean? Because they're going to be honest. But it has been wonderful to have our family so involved together. I think, especially now that our son is here, we have a 15-month-old son, and, my mom being 8 hours away, she's trying to get over here as often as she can. Cause I think being far away from the grandbaby has been a little harder, I think, than being far away from us. But we did at one point, we joked that we need to have, she said she needs England Cattle Company's Louisiana hauling division, on the side of their truck, because we sell quite a bit of cattle out to Florida, Mississippi, out that direction. And that's quite a haul from where we are. Some of these folks are buying cattle 10, 15 plus hours away. And so if we can get them down to my folks' place in Louisiana, at least cut that drive up in half. We've done that quite a bit. So I think both of our family, they've been very supportive of our dreams and goals and kind of letting us take the reins there. Now we still, when we're doing culling and sorting and different kind of things, we're always getting advice and, direction and, hey, what do you think on this? I think everyone is still always very involved, and we very much respect and appreciate their opinions. And, someone once told me, you got to put smarter people in a room than you, bounce off ideas and stuff. To be successful in this, there's got to be so much communications and clear goals and directions. And I think as a family, all of us, we're really good at being checks and balances for each other and keep making sure that we're staying on track and making sure we're trying to achieve those goals. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's very much a true statement. When it comes to our parents, Miss Cindy did so much with the youth, and not only in Louisiana, but the American Junior Brahman Association in general. And my dad kind of shares the same passion because the Brahman Foundation and things that they've been involved with for a long time, I think is just really awesome, and everybody has their role. And I think bringing the whole family package to the situation, I think is just vital and important because it brings so much to the table.
I couldn't agree more with all of that. But there was one point you made about maybe your parents being a division of hauling. You know, speaking to that, because of your location down in the valley, what's your perspective on your location as far as, do you think it's a hindrance or do you think it's a benefit about where your actual location?
I will say that when I first came here to England Cattle Company, it was like 2019, I guess. And we decided, we're like, yeah, this is probably, Benton had been hinting for a while, like, hey, you should come down here and we could like really make this work. And I was like, okay, like what, I go down there and we both,
let's be honest here. She was working for the Brahman Review at the time when I first met her.
Yeah.
And Miss Carranza, gotta say, I appreciate you. She'd seen that we were talking at a show, and she said, she kind of talked me up a little bit, which I can't believe still, but she did. And Brooke says, well, where is he from? And she said, oh, he's from the Valley. And she says, oh, that sounds far. But and it is, and we understand that. The thing
I will say though that like when I came down here, I think that was probably the biggest challenge that we were seeing is like we have this really great set of cattle. I mean, I will, everybody likes to give me a lot of credit for helping get it to where it is, and I mean, like I do appreciate those compliments. But if I wouldn't have had a solid foundation to work with getting here, I mean, England Cattle Company had already had a really great reputation. They were already, had made connections and different things, around the world and stuff. So I think when I got here, that was the biggest challenge though, was that we're further south, and like, how are we going to bring these cattle to the people? And so Benton had started actually videoing and like taking pictures and stuff, and I'll bet it was a little shaky. And
boys, I'm gonna tell you something, it was
sometimes
terrible.
I had to call him and be like, you need to take the sound off that video, because I think you were saying a word that it was in Spanish, but it didn't sound like it was very eloquent. And so I think that, I mean, sure, like being as far south as we are, that has prevented challenges, but I think together we've been able to work out a way to really get our product out there, because I think one of Mr. Guerra's famous sayings too is like, don't see, don't tell, don't sell. Is that how he says it? Or
No see, no tell, no sell.
there you go. No see, no tell, no sell. That's one of his, many famous sayings that he has, but it's so true. The power of social media and digital media, and everybody has a camera in their back pocket, all the time. It's a blessing and a curse at times, right? But I think, and I'll let Benton speak a little bit more on that, like location wise, but I think that was probably the biggest hurdle that we had to overcome last year. I think in my first month here, we videoed and pictured every single day. It was intense. Especially if y'all know videoing and picturing cattle, there's a lot of work and stuff that goes involved with that.
Videoing and picture day is the most intense.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
have, and makes it puts people on edge more than any other event that we do. So for you to be there and be doing that every single day for their first month there, it's a wonder you guys even made it past that point.
Yeah.
It's very much a wonder how we still got married. Now we have to come to this agreement.
Let's just say we were a lot sweeter to each other in that honeymoon stage, probably in the beginning, than like now we're just like, actually like we really rarely picture and video together much
actually
anymore.
Guys, we made an agreement. We don't picture and video.
Yeah.
I get them all prepped. I get them there. I get them washed. I get them everything that needs to happen there, but I'm not there for picture video. I don't have much of the patience for it. Brooke's got it, and we got a couple great guys that help us, and it works out. But all that being said, like the first videos, golly, I don't know if we have them, but I don't know if I'd want anybody to see them, because it was at that time on Facebook, there was just not a lot of that going on. It was pretty rare to see much of that going on. I just kind of saw that Facebook was just so broad and so wide open, and it was free. There was nobody charging you to put all this stuff online unless you just absolutely wanted to promote it. And some of the first videos, I'll just tell you, Brooke helped me out a lot. I had a camera. I didn't have a tripod. I had a set of panels up against a fence. And literally my dad drove up there and he's like, what in the hell are you doing here? I mean, he had very little faith in the idea of it, because it was just like, very primitive in the way we were doing it. But the first month that we did that, we ended up selling the majority of all those cattle, just because people saw them and started calling and started, seeing the quality that we had there, and we got them down the road. And then it went from that to my dad asking me, when's the next time you're videoing? And we got better with time. But, having all those tools in your back pocket really helped us out a lot, because you're right, geographically, it's a challenge sometimes, but we just have to overcome that.
Yeah, there's nuances in kind of anywhere where we're at. You got to deal with the climate and just kind of the waterborne stuff that they'd have in Louisiana. You've got to deal with maybe traveling a little further, people in Mississippi or maybe just out of the loop from the Texas and Louisiana circuits. Everybody's got their unique parts of their program that they've got to overcome. But I tell you, y'all do a dang good job of doing it. Going to kick it in a different direction, I guess, get down to kind of the nuts and bolts, the meat of this whole content. And so I wanted to talk about kind of England cattle bloodlines. I know we're proud partners on the Polled Maverick bull, and he's, to me, as elite of a polled bull as the marketplace has to offer right now. But just in general, talk to us about kind of some of the modern pedigrees, the bloodlines that y'all got there running through England Cattle Company as we see it today.
Yeah, you brought up Maverick. I think that's one of our shining stars on the place. We got his semen on that bull from Australia. He was an ambassador's son from Australia, but my dad had seen him at Congress whenever World Brahman Congress happened in Australia, and loved the bull. And we started utilizing him. We were the first ones to obviously be able to utilize him, and we were working with him. And then Maverick hit the ground, and you talk about complete, and just a bull that for us, it's just been really a blessing, because you can kind of breed him pretty broad on different types of cattle and get what you're looking for. I think in the end, if you're planning those matings pretty closely. But he's been just such a blessing to have. And, you always thank the good Lord for sending you not necessarily the one that you were looking for, but the one you needed. I've had some really good ones come and go and die and not make it to where we thought they wanted to be. But it's funny how the good Lord always gives you what you need. And we started utilizing that bull. Brooke, truthfully, was just getting kind of started here whenever he came along. And I'll be honest, guys, she didn't like him very much as a calf. He's kind of leggy and kind of needs some time.
I had a feeling you were going to throw me under the bus on that one here.
I'm sure we've all had those conversations with our significant other on what they like and don't like. But, he ended up turning out really good. And we've used him very, very broad. Been using him pretty heavy, and really like the quality that he's producing. Along with that, there were some really nice cattle that we got out of Bardia, which is like our 114 fancy cow, that we've got some really exciting stuff coming out of that. Now, her first daughter that we really have out there showing polled midge was actually the one that won the state Brahman show. And then we've got some other nice calves that we got right now that we're really excited to kind of debut and put out there. We bought a cow secondhand from Bethel Salinas, Miss AA 468/7. And we bred her, and she produced a cow called Polled Lolo that went on to do quite a bit of winning and showing. And we loved her so much that we ended up breeding her back the same way. And we got a bull called Comandante, which is half brother to Maverick. But he's doing such an outstanding job for us. I think he's kind of the unsung hero here when it comes to bulls, because we've just been seeing such deep quality out of that bull. He was a class winner at the national show, and just has done such a good job of putting so much flexibility when it comes to movement, but at the same time making them so powerful, which I think is kind of hard to do all in the same sentence, because if they get so powerful, they just can't get out and move as freely on their feet and legs with just how much muscle and power they have. But there's, quite a few cows that we have out there. We've got some cows out of the Polled Madonna cow that are influential now. The 492 cow, we call her Polled Vogue, which has been a really good cow for us, that we've got some exciting stuff coming out of her. And then we used a bull that Ava Barker actually bred, Polled Pathfinder, quite a bit. I really appreciated the bull for his mass and power, and crossed him over on some really good cows. The 360/9 cow that we call Madison, she is absolutely a fantastic cow. Brandon, I think you used her second in class in Houston, but still stood very high up in the class and really looks really good. And she's doing a fantastic job for us as a cow. She comes out of some heritage bloodlines that go back to Matilda and 960/5. And then one of the other cows, when we got a really exciting young herd sire that we're really, really excited. I think we're going to kind of put him out there during Congress, is a cow that we call Dora. Dora is a Pathfinder out of a Snyder cow that Carlos Garrett owned, and he sold her, and we bought her when she was pretty late in age, flushed her, and she was reserve division winner in San Antonio and won another division elsewhere, and did very well for us on the road showing wise, but production wise, she's been doing so good. that Donna cow, crazy. You talk about polled genetics, but we have calves that go back to that original Donna cow that are 7 generations of polled in their pedigree. And so that's got to be one of the oldest, longest lines that we have here, is going back to that polled Donna cow. But just a cow and cow family that does so well for us, and when we're breeding. And I've said this a bunch when it comes to polled cattle. I think the worst, or the most dangerous word, not the worst, but the most dangerous word, is homozygous. When you're single selecting so hard, you're going to lose a lot, I think, when it comes down to the end product. And so we've been producing polled cattle for a long time. And I tell everybody this that buys cattle, I'd rather buy a Skirvin or horned one that's the absolute really good cow and breed them back polled than just single select for polled. And by doing that, well, we've got some exciting new stuff that's going to come up and come out that is homozygous. We've got a Maverick son that boy, I really do sure think a lot of. I think he's just going to bend the scale when he gets off a side of cow. I think that he's going to really do well when it comes to power and bone. And the best part about it is he is homozygous, so he's going to be able to knock the horns off in the first generation. But we've been fortunate enough to get some really good lines. Polled Sambo was another one that really did a lot of good for us up early. We have 3 herd sires by him: Iceman, ECCL Caporal, and then also Chief 719. That's Sam Duplantis crossed over with the Sambo. And so using that base and that horned base to get us started, we just started breeding for polled and then just kept adding quality. If they were polled, even better. And now I think we've got just an exceptional set of polled cattle that could really stand up anywhere, just something that's got some good about them overall. So we're very much looking forward to the calf crop we have on the ground now, and can't wait to see the next one, because we're always trying to bring in that new stuff. Brandon, you brought in the stuff from Parton and Parton, which I thought was just so awesome. You constantly kind of got to be freshening up those lines and bringing new stuff in, and we're definitely all about it. I think it's just so important to do that, because it'll just bring so much more to your package and do that. We do have our reserve division winner. We hadn't talked about it either. We had a reserve division winner in Houston called Polled Harvard. A lot of boxes checked when we talk about that bull. 610-pound weaning weight, 1,200 as a yearling, 1,763 as an 18-month-old bull. So a lot of growth in that bull. And we love the milk portion of the 840 bull. We have some 840 daughters that we have that are really, really good udder quality, and they're all really sound-footed, which we very much appreciate, because we dang sure want to keep that in mind going down the road. If they don't have good feet, they're not very much use, because they're not longevity that we strive for and talk about so much in Brahman. Sure isn't going to happen.
Yeah. A lot of people know England Cattle Company as being one of the top in terms of polled cattle, but they're also I also see you as top in just all around good cattle. And then polled almost being a byproduct, because you've laid such a foundation of functionality and production, and then you start injecting, everything else. But the base that you've put down has just solidified your place of kind of where you are at now.
And I will say, not to cut in real quick, but I will say, though, that I think that's where our 2 lives have crossed so much there too, is that at least when we were growing up, Brandon and Showen, there wasn't very many polled cattle at all, right? I saw my very first polled cat Brahman when I went to Australia on the exchange program there through the association. I mean, how many years ago? I don't want to age myself here, but quite a number of years ago. They just weren't heard of really here in the States. And so I think that was probably one of the most impressive things when I did come here to England Cattle Company, was to see such a solid foundation, a good herd, a solid herd of polled cattle, but also not ignoring that horn base too, or just not ignoring good general functional quality cattle. I think Benton and I have this conversation all the time. Man, when I was starting out, if I could have been to a place to see such a solid foundation of polled cattle, that would have been a huge dream, right? Because what your dad had to go, all over the country really to try to find the small starter herd of polled cattle, that we did get back then. 15 years ago. So
yeah, Brandon, I appreciate you saying that, because it's been I'll just say this much. When we first started buying registered cows, and I think everybody's been through this struggle, is that they go out and they buy cattle, but they don't know the whole story on what they're buying. And you get some good and you get some pretty bad. You got to kind of gut through what you got there. And I think everybody doing their homework on bloodlines and the good ones, the ones that I think are really doing the good and staying away from the bad. You've always got to give up something. When you're breeding, you're kind of just breeding for a goal. At certain points, you got to say, okay, well, I'm going to give up this to get that. When we first got started, it was a real challenge. We had all these heifers that we were calving, and nobody likes to calve heifers, but just getting that good quality base that we had as commercial breeders to start, I think, was the uttermost important. Because you're right in a sense, Brandon, when you said that polled is a byproduct. It's our goal, absolutely our goal, to be there, but never in a time do I think that we'll lose a horned influence there, because the broad amount of horned cattle there are in comparison to polled. You've got to honestly keep trying to influence your polled cattle with horn genetics, because there's so much more availability. And also on top of that, I think there's just a lot more things that you could be adding to your package. So like with our homozygous anything, we have a few homozygous. There's one specifically, Harvard's mama is a homozygous cow. And she's double bred England Cattle Company. She goes back to an Ava Barker cow that we bought early on. But you talk about a good moderate size cow with really good feet, got a great udder, and then just kind of the whole package for us. But, wanted to add some more muscle and power. And I thought that breeding that female specifically to 840, which, 840's done a really good job, I think, on docility, feet, and udders. That's a big portion of it, but, could maybe get a tick big when it came to overall what you want in your herd. And so I thought I could bring him down and just kind of moderate him a little bit with that cow. And I just can't wait to use the bull breeding wise. It's just, you've got to kind of balance the scales there, because if you don't, again, single select anything, it just, you're going backwards, And so for us, I think good is good as good as good is a saying that my dad always says. And I think that it stays true within cattle. I will say this much. You talk about those guys that come into your life every once in a while, and you're very fortunate to have them come around and give you some knowledge. Paul Finnick came down here years and years ago to look at polled cattle, and I got to know Paul fairly well and get to visit with him. But he said, son, what you need to do is you need to breed for good. If they're good, they're a good base, and just keep breeding polled on them and keep those, and you'll get there. And I think we are. I really do believe that we're going to bring out some stuff that I think, just total package wise, it's just a very good overall package that people could utilize.
Paul is one of those icons of the Brahman world. Yeah, he's from Australia, but he's one that we really look up to in terms of quality cattle produced, marketing, and just mating and cattle breeding knowledge. He's awesome. Love every opportunity we have when he comes to visit us and look through our cow herd. And I just give him free rein and say, give me your thoughts, positives, negatives, let me know where you stand.
I think that's so important, what you just said, not just with Paul, but like, Brandon, you come to our place, I want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and what you see. And whether I agree with it or not, and maybe because, well, we have different goals in mind, and or maybe there's something we don't see, right? But I think it's so important.
Sometimes you can get a little like cart blindness, right? Yeah. Like sometimes, so it's good to have
just having outside people come in. And I've got to say this much for Paul. He gave me some real advice, somebody that had experience at a time in my life that I needed to hear it. And he kind of stepped out doing it. And I won't forget it, because he gave me some wise old owl advice that really made me change myself, and the ideas on breeding as well were kind of second, but the breeding portion of it was a big impact. I think that guy, you're right, just an icon when it comes to total and what he's doing. And you always look at his catalogs and look at the cattle that he's breeding are just extremely impressive, and been at it a long time. The good Lord blesses us sometimes, and most of the time it's when you least expect it. you have somebody come around and or something happen that just, man, it really changes you and gives you a new perspective.
Perspective, yeah.
Well, guys, we're in over an hour. We're not cutting you off, but we are heading towards some semi-wrapping up questions. It's been a lot of fun. I think we've talked about some cool stuff, but opportunity for a shameless plug. How does England Cattle Co. market their cattle, production sale? I know how y'all do, but go through kind of different ways someone could get a hold of you to buy some cattle if they wanted to implement your cattle in their program.
So I think we've got our biggest event of the year happens the third weekend of May every year, our annual production sale. We've got folks, it'll be on May 17th this year, actually, 2025. Folks from all over the world we're blessed to have here come, and it's the largest offering that we know of polled cattle here in the United States. We do everything from live cattle to semen and embryos. So that's a big for us. We normally have like a September sale, but this year we were fortunate to be able to sell everything that we were going to put in the sale, private treaty ahead of time, which was a huge blessing for us. So usually we typically do an online sale there in the fall and then a big production sale there in the spring. But our phone number and, Benton's number is out everywhere. So you can feel free to call, message us, anytime.
We are having to Brooks deal, England Cattle Co. on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and then our website, obviously englandcattleco.com, is two places you can go to. We are having a big event coming up right after World Brahman Congress. We'll have our field day here that we're hoping to have a really good group of people from all over the world attend. Feel free to come and visit if you can. We'd love to have you and kind of see what we're doing. We're going to serve some Brahman beef there to show that portion of it, and then have some speakers come in and kind of talk about different things they're seeing within our cattle and the beef side of it. And we're always available. Brooke kind of gets mad at me sometimes. We may be at dinner someplace and I got to catch a call to visit with somebody, but we think customer service is very important. We love that hand-on special touch experience. You talked about coming down here. We always offer, we have a guest house if it's not taken available for people to come and visit with us. And we'll pick you up at the local airports, obviously, and work out shipping later, because knowing geographically where we're at, we just kind of got to work through it. But want people to come visit us, want people to know that we're always a phone call away, and just very much appreciate anybody's time. And if we end up doing business, even better.
I will say to our listeners who may not have ever been down there that if you want to go have some fun, the England Cattle Company folks can really put on a shindig, and just the culture and the uniqueness of it, but the hospitality is just out of this world. And so I highly encourage anybody just to get down there and experience it.
Well, Brandon, I appreciate you saying that. And I got to say, same thing for y'all. Like y'all's Brahman event that just happened. We went last year. We couldn't make it this year. We just got so many irons in the fire and trying to get stuff done and for Congress, really. And we custom harvest cotton and getting back to the Valley a couple weeks ago. It's been a big to-do to get everything kind of going on that end. But I think it's the time you spend with people and the special touch, especially. I know it's the same way with you and Rachel, that we definitely love that. And when people come down here, we want them to know that they're very welcome and make it a big event. We got Mexico right across the border, and we take people from all over the world to go over there and just kind of see it and experience that. And then, the beach is 45 minutes to an hour from us. So that's always a big place to go. But we just pride ourselves on hospitality. We want people to come down and know that they can come down and have a good time with us.
I still haven't made one of those, but hopefully this year I'll maybe get to make one when Brandon's gone. I usually try to stay back home, but we're going to wrap up with one last question, and then I've got two questions that we ask every listener, but this is kind of the last question, personal to y'all's specific episode. At least we see y'all undeniably as one of the leaders in polled Brahman cattle at a global scale, not just Texas, United States, but really see y'all as leaders in the polled world. And so what do y'all think is the future of polled in reference to Brahman?
I think the discussion that we had earlier kind of plays into what you just asked. I think that breed for polled, but keep quality. I think that avenue and that aspect on this is the way to go, because you're still breeding quality there. I do see that, sooner than later, we're going to see some real quality homozygous cattle come out that are really going to be able to make an impact on somebody's herd. You can go out and get some really good semen from BRC or, several places that you can buy some semen from and influence it on a great homozygous cow and make something really spectacular. It's going to combine two great things, but also make them polled. And I think polled is the future as a whole, because I think in a commercial setting, I think there's undeniably a demand for it. And as an animal husbandry side of it, I think it's just really, really something that we should all be focusing on that side of it. So I think the future is bright when it comes to polled cattle, and there's a lot of future there.
I think the quality too, and just from, five, almost 6 years ago that I've been involved in this, from then to now, is just unmatched, right? The quality seems to go up, and then it just opens the playbook more, I think, for more breeding opportunities and, your goals. I will give Benton this. Every year, about around this time every year, he kind of takes our whole cow herd and shuffles the deck almost, because anybody can just take a bull and turn them out on a set of cows, right? But a really good breeder is the ones that can sit there and study and can look back at the previous calves, or maybe they didn't match quite what I wanted to do with this bull and stuff. And so he does spend hours and days looking and analyzing and saying, hey, these are the bulls that I want to put out this season. And do I need to move some cows around, to see what will match best there? So I think as long as we keep that mindset and just continue to select for quality, continue to, our program too has shifted a little more too. We're putting more emphasis on new things like carcass value and DNA, going that route, because we're seeing the value in genomics and some of these different things, more involved EPDs. There's so much value in this data that we're able to collect. And so I think just going that direction and just really trying to put an emphasis on breeding, because they have to be a cow first. I mean, they've got to go out and do their job, right, at the end of the day. And so that's the only way you're going to be profitable and sustainable in this business. So I think for us, that's kind of where we're headed.
No doubt, if the future there, polled, I see being a big portion of it. If we can make the quality equivalent, then there's no argument that polled is the way to go. And so I think y'all are, like I said, world leaders in that. We'll go ahead and wrap up with just a pair of questions we ask everybody. You can answer them how you see fit. Y'all can answer them as a group, or you can answer them separately. But the first one is what y'all's pet peeve in Brahman, and seeing as y'all are the polled people, I want to kind of see what y'all's pet peeve is in polled Brahman.
I'm going to tee off on that one real quick. I think the homozygous part of it is my big pet peeve, because we'll just think about it on a grand scale, right? I don't know, 12 to 15,000 heads registered through the ABBA a year. You think about how many are bred polled, and then you think about how short there is on the actual polled unpolled, and then you think about how many homozygous calves actually hit the ground. And when you think about it in just a sheer numbers aspect, how many of those are just going to come out and be absolutely the stuff? It's just a very small percentage. And I love the idea, and I know that's where it's headed, and I know that's what we need to be striving for. But at the same time, though, I still think a great scurd bull is going to do you a heck of a lot more than just a homozygous bull.
We're going the long way. We're not doing any shortcuts there. Trying to really plan and make sure and find that the homozygous ones that we are going to put out are the ones that we actually firmly believe will change the game there.
Well, that's really refreshing to hear from y'all, because I mean that's the truth of it is there's not really any use in a homozygous bull if he's sorry. And so I appreciate that. And the last question, like I said, y'all can answer this individually, y'all can answer it together, but we get some interesting answers. What is y'all's favorite Brahman animal of all time? Could be somebody else's, could be dead, could be alive.
Oh, that's a hard.
I think I know who you're going to pick, Benton. I think I do.
Man, I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, that's a really tough question. You think about the animals that impacted your herd, but at the same time, though, you're opening up broad where you can just say any, ever, all time. I mean, that's that's like saying, who you putting on your team for who you putting on your Mount Rushmore there. What are you saying, Brookie?
Oh, put me on the spot here, man. It is such a hard question.
I was thinking it was going to be something like TCB Dragonheart 257.
Yeah. Well, I will say probably for me, the 511, Miss LeBlanc 511, that cow is kind of what sparked my love of Brahman cattle. And then, of course, Dragonheart, he was a Houston champion, and he did a huge influence for, my family's breeding program, put us on the map internationally. I think Caporal put us on the map internationally here. He was the first international semen deal that we did, right? ECCL Caporal, born on Mike's birthday, actually. So pretty special. They share the same birthday there. But man, I don't know. You could really, and then like today, my favorite cow on the place is a D-bar cow, actually, 905/1. There's a painting of her in our son's room that was gifted to us by some really, really amazing friends of ours. She bred the 620 bull and has done a lot of good things for our personal herd. But when you want to just talk about combining two genetics from both sides, I don't know. There's much different ways we could go about this. I'm going to let you talk about it.
I think the biggest influence I'm going to go at it on this aspect. On the biggest influence on our herd was Sam Duplantis' 302 bull. He brought maternal merit. He's a Vanguard bull. It goes back to a lot of maternal merit and just did such a good job for us on the cow side of it. We have 14 and 15-year-old cows here that are still in production. The only ones that have gone away from them have been the ones that ended up just dying. They just had something happen there where they got sick or something happened. But really, really big time bull there for us. Man, that's a tough question.
Keaton, I'm curious to see what you were pegging Benton to say there.
Oh, a certain cow that might have got a piece of Houston was who I figured would be on the list.
A certain cow that got a piece of Houston. So you're going to say Polled Passion.
I thought you might like her pretty well.
Yeah, that I'm going to say this much. Polled Madonna overall is one cow line that is just unbelievable.
That's who I thought it was going to be Madonna.
Yeah, I'm going to say this much. When we talked about bull side of it, right? I think 302 really did a lot for us there. But on the cow side of it, we've got so many Madonna daughters that are just absolutely excellent producers. We used the 279/7, and then obviously the ambassador calves were the more famous ones because we showed them so much more, and they did so well in one reserve international champion cow. That cow
went register renown last year.
Yeah, she went register renown last year.
Might be the best polled cow living, I would think, or that's lived, maybe.
You're gonna really, that argument could be made because just a broad impact over the breed. I think that I told somebody this the other day. We had a client in this weekend, and I said, if you're going to start a poll program, I think a poll Madonna daughter is just a necessity because you can breed them a lot of different ways than just overall quality. We've got great granddaughters out of her now that are just awesome producers, and it's just a super cow. I always say her head's in North Texas and her hindquarters in South Texas because that's how long bodied she is. But just a cow that's mated well with a lot of different matings. And just a super impactful cow, I think, on the polled world in general.
And she doesn't miss. Her 468/7. There's a couple of cows that really come, to the top here in our program where you can breed them. Like some people would say, you breed them to a goat and you'll get something that you could figure out how to work with there. Just good, functional, good cows that have made a really good impact on our program.
Well, I tell you what, guys, this has been such a great episode, and it's so fun to hear about how multifaceted England Cattle Company is. Not just in the difference between custom harvesting and row cropping and cattle, but just the diversification within the program. And I feel like we could we should set up some more pieces and parts and dive down deeper to even some of those in future podcasts. But I think today we probably ought to be wrapping this deal up before Keaton and I get in trouble on going over too long.
I just want to say and just tell you, we very much appreciate y'all thinking of us to be on here. It's such a great thing y'all do. We talked about at the beginning of the podcast where just how impactful I think this is on people and getting some perspectives that I think are really good, because it's like we talked about earlier. Overall, having those people come into your life and make some big impacts on yourself, those are people that changed your life. And we definitely want people to hear our story and understand what we're doing and kind of where we're coming from. But at the same time, though, y'all are doing such a fantastic job promoting Brahman cattle and promoting great ideas and great people, I think.
Yeah, we appreciate you participating in this, and we always enjoy visiting with you. And Keaton, you got anything you want to throw in?
No, thanks, guys, and we'll go ahead and wrap up, but we really appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Over the Hump podcast. Our passion is Brahman cattle, and it runs deep. And this show is about its rich history, industry trends, and stories that define the American Brahman. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram and Facebook at Cutrer. See you next time on the Over the Hump podcast.